from mount today, but let's just have a look at a couple of ways to mount. So obviously, if I've got someone pinned in side control, I know that the more my hip becomes separated from his hip, his near side elbow comes back in. Okay, so realistically at all times, I need my hip to be touching his, whether I had it semi-sprawled, whether I had my knee all the way across his butt, anything like that. Basically, if you just think of your hip and his hip being connected, this is going to be pretty good. So I just want you to be aware of that. Now, if I just try to mount him like a beginner and step over, anyone good is always going to put you in some variation of guard. So that's just not going to work. So we just need to think to ourselves, can I get my knee to the inside of the hip here? Because now my hip doesn't have to block him anymore, my knee does the job. As he tries to bring his knee back in, he can't. He would have to hip escape away, and now his knee could come back in. So now I've got to be sort of somewhat sensitive to his hips moving. So as Sam's hips try to move, I'm going to go with them and run my shin across the body until I can get my shin all the way across him into what we call a shin mount. Now again, I need to be careful. If I lose connection with the upper body and he can start to move me around, he might be able to make a way to expose my legs. So I'm always walking my other leg back down and just connecting my two legs together. You don't even have to lock a triangle, but just walking back this direction. And then I'm going to start to point my knee and extend my hip. So I'm going to start to point my knee and extend my hip. And what this does is it sort of pushes his quad down. Now if I extend my lower leg now, he captures me. So once I get here, right now he can't capture me. If he opens his legs to try and capture me, I just keep my heel up and then I pull my foot up and I step on his hip flexor, and now I come around the guard. So we're not going to mount him like a white belt beginner, we're actually going to mount him in a way it's going to work. Doesn't really matter so much about the upper body, I want you to focus on the lower body. So my hip or my hip by the knee. I managed to come up and get this on the inside. For him to get his knee back in, he has to hip escape slightly. So as he starts to try and hip escape, I start to run with him and just take everything across in this shin mount. I drive my knee long, which pushes his knee down. Sometimes I'll even wrap my shoelaces around his other leg as it goes searching for me. Pretty hard for him to get anything. My foot comes up and steps on the leg. Now when he goes looking for the quarter guard, nowhere to be seen, and then we can pop up into mount. Let's get a partner, let's start with this, let's go. Now let's just look at, I suppose, a variation of that. What starts to happen is he recognizes he knows you want to mount. So some people will turn their knees away. They kind of somewhat expose their back and do this. So they know that if you try to step over here, that often they're going to capture you in some type of guard. So, you know, this is the sort of thing we're going to deal with. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take my knee and I'm going to drive my knee over. Now, when I do this, what I don't want is my knee to come over and then he starts to drive with his elbow and pushes me back into half guard. So I'm going to try to take some type of grip, whether it's an elbow grip, whether it's an underhook, anything like this, anything to stop him being able to use this. Tricep grip works really well. It's probably the lowest cost of entry. You just have to be able to make a false grip under the elbow. And then I'm going to lift this and drive my knee to the mat. So as Sam tries to work back into his guard retention, I'm going to do a very similar thing to what we did before. I've kind of stacked both knees on top and then we'll climb up the guard, or up the mount, sorry. So this time, instead of turning his knee, trying to invert this knee inside, what he's trying to do is play a waiting game. And he's waiting for you to get a bit frustrated and then push the knee back into some type of half guard. So what we're going to do is we're going to go with some type of grip that stops him balling up over there. And then as I start to drive everything through, really it's very similar to what we looked at before, and then we'll mount him. So this time, don't just see the knees are away and just think I'll just step over. Often they're going to feed you back into a half guard of some sort. So let's just go via the hips again. Let's go. Mount, I kind of think to myself, am I going to stay up in this upright position, or am I going to come down into a low riding position? And I think if you're less confident with your mount control, everybody wants to get down very low because they feel like up high here, they're going to get pushed off or rolled over and that sort of thing. I want you to get comfortable in this position, particularly the MMA guys, because you're going to do most of your damage from here. So if every time you sit up though, he just shoves you in the hip and then you fall over or he gets his knees back in, obviously that's not very useful. So I want us to get used to how we're going to ride on someone in this up position, because one is it's much better for striking people. Two, it's actually good for submission grappling, because if I can't get a clean connection to an underhook, if I just crash the head with a crossface, you get people who are good at escaping mount and they should kip you out of here 9 out of 10 times. I always use this example, but I train with both Gordon and Giancarlo a fair bit. And each time they would allow me to take a crossface on them and send the crossface as much as I like, and they would escape this like too easily. Even with an underhook, Gordon would still fuck me up. Actually, Giancarlo did as well. The only way you're going to control guys like that is with double underhooks, but you're definitely not going to control them by coming this way. Now you're thinking, well, they're world champions. How about controlling someone my level? Even if he knows how to kip well, sending this crossface with nothing else under the armpit, there's nothing to stop me going high. So as soon as he starts to send me high with his initial bridge and then starts kipping, there's nothing to stop me from being put up here. And that's why the kipping escape works so well. So we're not going to burrow down into low mounts until we have underhooks. So whether maybe I mounted him with the underhook, hey, by all means stay down low here and start to work. This is totally fine. But we're not just going to come down low with a crossface by itself. So we're going to sit up here. Now, anytime I'm sitting up, it means that the hips are on top of his hips. So if Sam makes big bridges, I do get moved a lot. So if you feel like the guy's really giving you a hard time with moving, there's nothing wrong with taking your hips off him. So when he tries to bridge around now, he can't move you as much as when you're actually on top of the hips. So just keep that in mind. Secondly, start to hand fight and get on hands. Because for him to do any of the escapes he wants to do, it's all about him getting elbows back inside. And when elbows start to go inside, his wrist gets off the body somewhat and you can start to isolate them. If his wrists are in the center, it can be a lot harder to get them off the body, but it's harder for him to have his elbows inside. So I've been thinking about this lately. Winning the inside position in relation to elbows and ribs. So he wants elbow and rib to be inside of my knee, and I want my knee inside of his elbow and rib, and that's going to be our battle. And then any time he tries to win the inside elbow, I kind of realize that the wrist is more available. So that's all we're going to do. We're going to sit up on our partner, and we're going to have our hands in like this, and we're just going to be ready. If I feel him bridging, I'll take my weight off him slightly. And as he tries to get an elbow inside, doesn't matter which side, I'm just going to start to take that hand and just start to put it on the mat. That's all I'm going to do. It's very hard for him to do a lot from here, and I can still back the inside elbow. So we're starting out pretty simple. Win an inside elbow, please. He gets this, and I leave it for too long. This straightens, the two go together. You're defending, you're behind the game now. So Sam wins an inside elbow. I'm going to get to the wrist. Now for him to go to the rest of the move, he has to get his elbow and knee connected. I can always pummel my knee back inside and we'll go from there. Let's get a partner, let's go with this. Our controlling positions for here, it's do not let an elbow escape come in. Once he gets this in, it's going to be tough. Now for the MMA guys, yes, you might get a punch or two before he escapes, but if he quickly whips on his side and pushes this back in, by the time you punch him, you're back in a half guard. And, you know, it's not the end of the world, you're still on top, but that's how they're going to escape. So let's be aware of that. If you can win the inside knee, we're in a great spot. This is something I want to think about. Now I said to you, really the goal is though, to get into what we call single chest wraps, which means an underhook and his head, or double chest wraps. This is best case scenario. That's always my goal from the mount position. That's whether I want to attack the arms, get his back, that's what I want to do. So I need to settle him down with all these initial problems that he's going to present. So he starts to win the inside elbow. We were pinning wrists and just getting our knee back inside. Now from here, nobody that does jiu-jitsu is happy with their arm being in this position. If he was, I would just go straight into Americanas. What's always going to happen, he's going to start to turn towards me and start to strip the grip and get his arm back. So this is pretty standard. So I'm just going to take my hand and I just put the weak part of my grip on the mat. So at least now he's going to have to do some good work to get this back. It's not that easy. If I can just keep the weak part of my grip in the mat does a lot of the work for me, and I'm just leaning my body weight on him. So there's no need to rush here. And then the more he wants to get his second hand to help, because he's going to have to, the more I start to take that. So as he goes over here looking for that second hand, I'm just going to keep the grip in position. I'm going to bring my chest down, and I'm going to bring my other hand into a position ready to receive. And I'm going to let him get a nice strong grip because he wants to strip his own grip. And I'm even going to let him strip the grip. But then I'm just going to bring his hand to me, and then we're going to move away from his grip. His grip's not very hard to get away from because I just roll out away where there's no mat in the way. And now I've got a single arm wrap, and then we can switch now into what we call a figure 4 arm wrap, or I just go elbow on the mat and we go back to chest wrap. Either way, he's got his elbow above his head, and he kind of gave me what I wanted. So we don't always have to go through things the most difficult way of trying to peel elbows off. In this case, he does it for us. So he wins the inside elbow. We start to pin here. If he does nothing, I'm going to attack his arm. So as he goes looking to strip the grip, I bring my chest behind his tricep. I get my other hand ready to receive, and then I just bring it towards itself. You can go figure 4 or elbow on the mat, and then we'll go up into a chest wrap. And then when I put him in the chest wrap, I want to get my chest as high on the elbow without losing it, and then I just lean my weight forward. So my weight comes off my butt and I just lean like this. As Sam tries to get his elbow back now, he's only got the 1, and if I can win the inside position on that, he's really in some bad spots now. All right, let's give this a go. Now, once we get into that single chest wrap position, we are in the driver's seat, and realistically now, I mean, unless he's very good, I feel like he's only going to escape now as I try to submit him. If I want to hold him here till the end of time, I feel like I pretty much can. Again, unless it's someone that's unbelievably good at keeping with their arm above their head. And I've trained with a handful of people that can do that. So just keep that in mind. What we're going to always search for, if we can, is to get that second hand up. So now that I've got the single chest wrap, I'm going to extract my cross face, and I'm just going to lean behind his elbow here at about a 45-degree angle. So when he tries to circle his elbow back inside, it should be hard. What I don't want is he circles his elbow back down again. If he tries to take it up and over the head, I can just lean on the elbow. Normally I find the way guys escape is they actually go towards their belly a little bit and then they circle. So what I want you to do is I want you to lean so you're nearly pushing under the tricep and elbow slightly. So as Sam tries to circle towards his belly and drive his elbow in a circular motion, I'm going to just lean on him here like I was cross-facing through my shoulder, and he shouldn't be able to get that back. This allows me to turn my hips slightly, and then I can go searching for this underhook back here. I don't care how much he tries to keep his elbow to his rib line. It's pretty hard for him to stop me taking my fingers here and just starting to push them towards the inside of his elbow. Strong, strong, strong. Even when he's trying to be strong here, because his other elbow's above his head, it's not that easy for him to keep his elbow down. And then I can just walk and walk and walk until I get to here. So now I've got both elbows up. I just grip both of my elbows effectively. So I've got his shoulder and I've got my elbow. And then I do the same thing as before. I lean forwards. He'll normally hide the front of his face towards one of my armpits, which is normal because he doesn't want to be smothered. And then I press here in the back of his elbows. My weight is off my hips and on his shoulders or on his elbows. So as he tries to bridge around now, pretty hard for him. Now the only escape that I do find people can do if I'm not careful is they try to start to bring their knee up inside my tailbone, and they start to try and get a knee inside here and then start to do things like this. So I just want you to be aware as you lean forward here, if you feel that knee coming inside the tailbone, just kind of settle this down by taking a bit of an asymmetrical stance with the knee up, or I'll go back into the low mount position just to settle him down there. Obviously eventually I want to come back up high again, but that's sort of where I'm going to shut that down. So let's have a look again. So we end up in that single chest wrap. We'll just go for the single chest wrap. We're in the single chest wrap. I make this exchange. He's going to try and get his arm back, and I'm going to lean on him here. I'm going to take this switch stance slightly, looking for his elbow down here, and then we're going to start to walk. Notice I bring my body weight down a little. If I leave my head up high, I'm kind of using my arm isolated by itself. If I bring my body down, I can nearly drive through the mat to start to bring this second arm up. I grip up on both elbows here and settle in. I lean my weight forward. If I feel him trying to bring his knee in my tailbone, I'll either sit a knee up or I'll walk back down low. When he tries to bring the knee in the tailbone now, it should be impossible. When I bring it up high, he potentially can go. He can start to do things like this. So either settle it down via an asymmetrical stance or we walk back down the body. Let's get a partner, let's go with this. Once we get both their elbows above their head, it's getting to a point where now we can wear him out as long as we'd like, but at some stage we want to do something, right? We want to finish the match. So we could either look for submissions. For the MMA guys, just keep in mind that for you to sit up and punch, he's going to get his elbows back. There's no way to really stop that. So if you get them to this position in MMA, this is not really a punching position, just so we understand, because my hands are actually doing the pin right now. So in MMA, I'm thinking about trying to either expose his back or armbar him. Just keep in mind, when I go to the armbar, especially when you're sort of new to it, you're going to feel like you probably fail on about half of them. You probably come up here and then he bridges and you fall off on your back and the armbar doesn't work. And what can start to happen is you get this sort of feedback loop you're not happy with, and then you end up stopping doing the move. But what I'll say is if you can stick with it, over time you'll be able to get the numbers up to 9, 9.5 out of 10 in your favor, and it's only going to be a a real Houdini guy that manages to find his way out. So to work out the armbar nicely from here, both arms are up above the head. I'm going to slide my knee up like we looked at before into that asymmetrical stance. When I do this, I don't want to sag my weight over this side so much. He hits a quick bridge and I get knocked over. Or I have to let go of everything. That doesn't make any sense at all. So when I come up here like this, I kind of keep my head over the far shoulder, so if he does start to bridge into me, I don't get knocked over at all. Now I pull his head up as my body weight comes up, and then I'm thinking now at this stage, I want to chop this calf over his tricep here, and I want to take this leg and wedge it under his head. So I go here and wedge under the head, and I connect my knee and my heel if I can. This detail of getting on your toes will put a lot more pressure compared to being down here like this. Sam will tell you the difference between here and the difference between walking my toes up to here is substantial. And now, how are you going down there?
Yeah, it's really fun.
So I'll just take a bit of pressure off him. At this stage, I've got his arms exposed, and now it just depends how he had his arms wrapped up. Sometimes I'll even think about it before I step, fuck me. Sometimes I'll even think about it before I pop up into this position, which way he's got his arms locked. Some people have their arms locked in a defensive posture, but if you think about it, I just had him in a chest wrap. Sometimes they're not even thinking that far ahead, and this arm that I've sat out on is just exposed by itself. And if that's the case, you won't even have to do anything to unwrap it here. If it's this way, what we're gonna have to do is take this arm to our hip and then lean forward, and now this is by itself. But if your Juji Gatami is good, he won't be able to move around while you're doing all this. He's gonna have a lot of chest pressure and feel like he's dying, and then it's just a matter of braking. So I've got his right arm, so I put it to my right shoulder, and then we'll go across my right hip. And then for the brake, I'm just gonna come back up on top, Sam. For the brake, I bring the leg out from behind the head, and I just start to send it across the body, like so. And then for the brake, I drive my hips forward, and it's a pretty simple armbar from there. So let's see how it might look. We've got, those people would be fun to live next door to, wouldn't they? The baby and the dog. So I slide up here, I bring him up, and I think about tricep cutting in over the calf, or calf over the tricep. Then I think about my knee, and I get to this position before I do anything. Now from here, I start to look. Here's the arm, and I go back to this leaning sort of towards this far hip. I take the hand, I put it on my far shoulder. Now I go in front of the face, and I take this leg as high as I can, and then we can start to go into braking. Let's give it a go.